Well, hi, you guys. Welcome to Get Real with Rick Dancer, sponsored by the Coburg Road Car Wash. This is my friend Alyssa McLaughlin. Elisa. I say that wrong because
Everybody
looks like
says
Alyssa.
it wrong.
So Elisa, and we're going to talk tonight about something that's really super important to a lot of people, and it's the spectrum, autism. Everybody knows somebody who's on the spectrum, don't you think?
Sure.
And when I said that we were going to have Elisa on here, people were going, I've had friends all over saying, oh my gosh, I need to watch that because my sister, my brother, my aunt, my kid. It's such an important thing because so many people are on this, the spectrum. And Elisa did an article. It was a letter to the editor, wasn't it? To the Register Guard. This is years ago when I took it. And I read it and I was just like, I have to find this woman because you really spelled it out for me to make it so that I can understand what people, at least what a lot of people on the spectrum, how they see the world. Because I think it's really confusing for people. So we're going to talk about that. But first, I want to give props to our sponsor. And I got to find their video. Here they are. Well, hello, Renee.
Hi, Rick.
You're sponsoring the show tonight, so I thought I'd get some video going through the car wash. Is that okay?
Absolutely. And it's a great day for a car wash. I'm so glad you're here.
It's never a bad day.
Never a bad day for a car wash. That is right. As you can see, everyone's coming.
Watch the show tonight.
I will. What time?
5 o'clock.
5 o'clock, that's right.
Yeah, we're going to have a heck of a time.
I'm off here in a couple minutes. I will tune in at 5 o'clock.
So last time you were on,
I love that car wash. It is the most theatrical car wash I've ever been through.
Because you turn blue and you
it's
turn
great.
red.
My grandmother, quick story. When I was like about 10 years old, my grandmother needed to have the car wash. She was terrified of the car wash. She'd have me come with her, and I just thought, this is so cool. But she would love this. She would have absolutely loved this with the colors and all that stuff. Oh yeah.
And since we can't be on the car wash, Elisa and I can do the windshield wipers. So this is what it's kind of like to do that.
Yeah, the two ones. The one you do like this.
The two ones.
Yeah, they go like that.
You guys, so also really quick, we have a contest going on. You can win 2 nights to Dean's Oceanfront Lodge in Yachats. And let me show that to you. So this is a lodge down there. They're going to give you 2 nights. It has to be before June 15th. And you have to go to rickdancer.com to fill out the form. And you're going to also get to go to the Thrift Inn. Get a $50 gift card to the Thrift Inn. And but wait, there's more. There's more. You also now put the hat on. This is perfect for your hats on. So you're also going to get a $50 gift card to Ona's Restaurant and Lounge.
Ooh,
Very,
yeah.
very super class.
Yeah.
So there you go. God, you're just like my sidekick, aren't you? So you guys, that'll be really, really fun. And so you got to go to rickdancer.com to apply for that and enter the form and do that kind of thing. So Elisa, autism, the spectrum. What is that? What is the spectrum?
Long story short, spectrum refers to people who are in various degrees of autism. And they usually say low functioning, high functioning. That's even become a sort of a passé term. I really like to think of it as like on a scale from 1 to 10, that you can relate better to the world, or you have more trouble relating to the world. Autism is something that's been around for a long time. It's really from very severe. People are just not communicating with the world at all, to people like myself who can more or less function in the world and get along and try to pass for normal.
But it's still hard.
Oh, it's constant work.
Like what? Like how do you, like, compared to you and me, how do you see, like, I'm not considering myself normal, but in terms of
Nobody does.
No. But in terms of the world, give us some examples of how someone might see how you have to work harder to understand what's going on around you, or to get people to understand what you are thinking.
Yeah. It's not an easy question to answer, because it requires me to have some perception of what is not, or perception of what is normal, in order to answer that.
Right.
I say, people say, I say it's really hard to make social connections. They'll think, well, what do you mean? I go, half the time, I'm not sure that if what I'm saying or doing is the correct thing to say or do in any given situation. It's if you're walking around with a grenade, you pull the pin out and you're walking around with a grenade. And if you say the wrong thing or do the wrong thing or something, it blows up. And you go, well, that didn't work, but you never know what it is. With autism, it is a kind of minefield. It's fraught with a lot of, you learn all the rules and then you run into a situation where you don't necessarily know the rule. And then you go, okay, now what do I do? And that way all the time.
So because you said to me one time, you never learn because every situation is different. So whereas someone who's not on the spectrum might see something and go, okay, I blew up that time. I know what I did wrong. I'll do something different. For you and other people on the spectrum, it's always a new situation to you. So you never know.
Yeah, because the lesson doesn't necessarily stick. That capacity to learn that thing, that connection in your brain, to learn that pathway, it just isn't there. It's blocked off, or that you don't, for whatever reasons, it just doesn't happen. So you try to say, okay, I'm going to try to remember that. And then the next time it happens, you go, oh yeah, I forgot that. I didn't remember again.
So you've said to me too before that you want to make connections, but then sometimes you just don't. I mean, you know what I mean? There's a lot of people that I know who are on the spectrum. It's like, I want to have friends in my life, but sometimes I just want to be alone and I don't want to have friends in my life.
Yeah. But you having, at the risk of putting you on the spot, saying that, well, I want to have friends around me or I want to be alone, it's a nice option for you.
Right.
It's easy an option for you. Someone autism, it isn't necessarily an easy option. We're alone more often than not because we don't know how to make those connections. And then sometimes we need to be alone because you said, I'm overwhelmed, I'm overstimulated, I'm getting too much stuff going on. I need to be alone and just kind of to shut down and reboot, as it were. But yes, it's true that people, one of the myths is, people on autism, they prefer to be by themselves. It's not true. We don't know how to make that connection. Again, that connection is missing. And so you don't always know how to make that connection with people. I would love nothing better than to have lots of friends, be able to go out and do stuff and hang out with people. It just doesn't happen. And so it's a lot of work. And people go, well, join a club or, be more friendly. And you go, I'm sorry, I don't have, it's like if someone says, well, I got to do this plumbing, I don't know what to do. Well, just get the right tools. I don't have the right tools. And I never will be able, even if you put the right tool in my hand, I'd be like, okay, now what do I do?
Right.
And so.
When did you figure out that you were on the spectrum?
I did not get the diagnosis until I was 50.
50?
Yes. Something in which I am extremely resentful of. Because there are lots of people who could have known about it. Lots of people could have spotted it. I made a note here. I went to my doctor like last year or something, and he has this huge pile with my medical record, and I'm allowed to read it. It's my medical record. And I was looking up something. I went to some other doctor years ago, and I was looking up and wanted to find out what it is I, went to her for, blah, blah, blah. And I was reading her notes. The doctors write down everything verbatim. And she pointed out the patient thinks she may have autism. Here's what she wrote. Patient thinks she may have autism, but she makes eye contact. And I thought, of course I make eye contact. I've learned to do that. Okay. And so she just dismissed the thing. And then I wrote here, this is the only criteria she used for making a diagnosis. And she was lousy at doing that and making that diagnosis. You don't say, well, they make eye contact. They surely can't be autistic. Well, she's verbal. She's not autistic. Women and men present autism differently.
And women is more rare.
It's not rare. It's not rare. It's rarer to spot.
Oh, like what? What do you mean? You mean?
It's just because.
It's okay.
Okay. I did a lot of research on it and I read some articles on it. And there was a fellow who studies this. And he didn't even spot it in his own daughter until she was 7. This is a guy who does this for a living. A neuroscientist. And he didn't spot it in his daughter until she was 7. Most of the criteria and the symptoms and the treatment for autism is geared toward boys because those are the ones they've been looking at for a long time. Little Tommy isn't speaking when he's 2 years old. Everybody flips out. Little Julie, oh, she's so quiet. She's no trouble at all. She's just so, she just stays by herself, no trouble at all. And yeah, well, Julie's autistic, but she's presenting it differently.
So was growing up hard?
Yes.
Dumb question, Rick answer.
Yes. Yeah, it was extremely hard because they didn't know. And the only conversation I had with my mother was when I was 19, and she said something, which is also another misconception. She goes, well, you were kind of autistic as a child, but you outgrew it. You don't outgrow autism. It's there. It's always there. It's there the rest of your life. You can mitigate some of the symptoms. You can learn the rules and say, okay, in situation A, do this, don't do that, blah, blah, blah.
So is it true, like for you, that you would have to go into a situation, you are pre-planning, pre-thinking everything you're going to do before you get in there. So to just go to a party and enjoy yourself, that isn't really possible.
If I know the people and they know me for a long time, sure, it's not that difficult because they know me and they know how, they can kind of guess how I'm going to respond. If I react a certain way, that's cool. But new situations, oh, no. It's really uncomfortable. One of the reasons why I liked acting, it occurred to me, because I've done acting in Lord Limerick Theater and such, is because I know exactly what to expect. I walk out, I'll sit here, this person will come here and they'll say this, and I'll say this in response, and this will be their reaction. This will be my reaction. That's great.
That's
all
amazing,
pre-planned.
Elisa.
It's all pre-planned. So I go, it's so relaxing because there's no work for me. All I get to do is remember to hit my mark, say my lines, pick up my paycheck. But whereas real life, you don't do that. It's like, well, here's this and we're going to improvise, and you don't really know who the person you're going to improvise with. I'm like, yeah, no pressure there.
Do you feel like that people look at you funny?
I don't know. I really don't know. After a while, you kind of go, they kind of look at you. Then that's it.
Do you know when you make an alleged social faux pas?
Not always. That's the other thing, is because if you're with autism, you're not able to always pick up social cues. So as a result, you say something or do something, you're like, did I do something wrong? I don't know. I have an analogy that I want to present with you, and it's about the awareness of ASD, that people with ASD process the world differently. And a lot of neurotypicals need to understand that. You don't scold them or try to force them to act normal. I was just listening to an interview with a fellow in NPR with autism, and he talked about it. Yeah, and you have to remember not to flap your hands or, suck on your thumb or, pick your nose or whatever. Those are things you kind of, someone just goes, okay, I get that. But a lot of other stuff, more subtle cues, you just don't pick up on. And so we just will behave differently. Stimming, as it's often called, but it's counterproductive to tell people, don't do that, don't do that. And then go, okay, I've made a colossal mistake, and I really feel really bad and awkward because I've made this colossal mistake. This person scolding me for being this way. That's really tough, and you never know when that's going to happen. Again, it's like the hand grenade. You don't know when that's going to happen, and the other thing is that, slightly off topic perhaps, is that people may be autistic and they don't know it. But people will think, well, surely they know they're this way. Surely they know that. They don't know that.
Because you've been that way your whole life.
Suppose you go to a party, Rick. Okay? You're at a party and you're having a lovely time. You have to go to the bathroom. Go to the bathroom and come back out. And suddenly people are looking at you kind of strangely, or they're avoiding eye contact. And you go, what's going on? What's going on? Someone comes up to you and go, Rick, come here. I'm in the other room. One of us has our fly open. Oh, geez. Thanks, Mom. Thanks a lot. Really appreciate that. That's great. Someone says, I think you might be on the spectrum, or have you looked into this? That's what it is. But this is what actually usually happens. You come out, you walk around in the party, and you don't know why are people acting odd all of a sudden? Why are they being really awkward and everything? And then you leave the party and you get in the car and you sit there and you put the seatbelt on and you go, oh, I got my fly open. Oh my God. So people are like, well, I don't want to say anything because I don't want to embarrass him. No, let him walk around the party completely unaware of the fact that he's embarrassing himself because he has his fly open. Let's do that instead.
Right.
And so people will avoid mentioning something to someone because they go, well, I don't want to embarrass them, or I don't want them to feel like they're odd. That's why no one ever said to me anything. Well, we want Lisa to feel like she's normal, so we won't say anything. Well, Lisa isn't normal, and she's going to notice eventually that people aren't reacting to her normal, and she's going to wonder what the hell's going on. It's because she has her fly open and nobody said anything.
So do you cry?
A lot.
About what?
About everything, a lot of things. I trained in Aikido for years and years, and I would come home from class and I would sit down on my couch and I would stop because no, I don't get it. I'm not getting this. Why am I not getting this? And it's because it was being taught a certain way that I wasn't necessarily picking up on right away. And once I got the diagnosis, I suddenly analyzed everything in my life and I went, oh, okay, that's why that was happening. Oh, that's why that didn't work. Oh, that's why I can't do that thing. But if you don't have that diagnosis, you're wondering why people are looking at you oddly because you got your fly open.
Right.
Yes, the analogy goes. So.
People aren't here saying, I get it. This is so true. Always have an exit plan.
Wow, look at the time. Gotta go. That's the exit plan.
So do you feel misunderstood?
Yeah. And that I think most people feel misunderstood anyways. But with autism, it's kind of a double thing. It's like, you could say people misunderstand me because of your religion or your politics or because you're an older person. Oh, he doesn't understand our music, blah blah. And you kind of get that. But someone with autism, you go, I understand. People don't understand me, and I don't know why they don't understand me.
Oh.
So there's a double sort of burden on that. So yeah, well, people aren't going to get me. I got to a point. I think I finally figured out and saw the autism in me because I got to an age where I'm like, 0 F's given. I don't care anymore. And you do. You get to a certain age where you go, yeah, I don't care what other people think of me. So all that big, heavy rule book I was carrying around, now with it. I don't need it anymore. I don't care. If people don't understand me, fine. If I don't understand them, fine. And then you make decisions about, I will deal with this person or I'll deal with that situation because I can handle it. But these other things, I can't. I can't deal with this level of uncertainty, so I don't want to deal with this anymore.
So Penny says, what hobbies do you find yourself most comfortable with, such as gardening, music, cooking, baking, hiking, that maybe feel joy and share with others?
I have a lot of hobbies, like just like anybody else.
She writes.
Right.
Yeah,
I do. You have hobbies. That's not a problem. They usually end up being hobbies by yourself again. Yeah. But in fact, that's about depression. That is the single best thing you can do. If you want to know the single best, what is this? You want to know what the single best thing you do with somebody who's depressed, Rick?
What?
Get them away from their depression. Talk to them about something they're passionate about. Talk to them about something they like. Engage them. Say, hey, let's go for a walk. Let's go for a bike ride. Do it right there, right then and there, because they have to get out of that loop. Because depression gets you into this eddy and you can't get out of it. And someone says, hey, let's do something else. Get them away from that, because by talking, engaging them in their hobbies or things they like, and let's face it, people autistic, they can bore you to death with their passions. They really can. I know more about trains or opera or sumo than I ever really wanted to know.
Oh my God, you're describing so many people there. When folks on the spectrum, they get on one, and it's like you have to finish the whole thing.
Yeah.
All the way through. And so if neuronormals can be patient and wait for the end of the story, you can't. I used to do this to a relative of mine, just to see, because I was testing to see if this is what it was. And so I'd get halfway in, and I'd change the subject, and I'd watch this person, and they'd look, and as soon as I stopped talking, they go right back to where it was and finish the story.
Yeah.
And it was like, just to see, and it was super interesting, because I am raising a grandson that had him since birth. He is 10 years old, cannot speak in his own world.
The nonverbal stuff is very common apparently with boys. I don't know about girls, what the research is on that. But the assumption, this is a really interesting point. When people are nonverbal, the assumption is that they must be stupid, or, use the old term, retarded or something. They're not. They simply can't speak for whatever reason. They're intimidated, or they don't have I don't know how that works neurologically, but they just don't speak. Now people have iPads and stuff, and they can, spell stuff up and speak for them. And it's a godsend, because now they can text something.
Communicate.
They can communicate. They want to desperately. It's not like they don't want to. It's just they can't,
So when you were growing up, was it really hard?
Yeah, it was very hard, because, like I said, people didn't understand. They didn't understand when I was having my temper tantrums, because I was frustrated, or I was overwhelmed, or I was overstimulated, or what have you. And I still have meltdowns. And they're uncontrollable at the time. When you're running a full meltdown, it's everything's just over.
So what does somebody who's a parent out there do when their child or somebody in their family's having a meltdown? What
The
is
best thing to do is probably just leave them alone.
Let them do what they do.
And when they get to a point, say, what can I do to help? How can I help you? Say stop saying stop that or calm down. That doesn't work. Say, look, what's going on? How can I help you? And then hopefully we'll get to a point. With my Aikido training, I have to wait till I get to a certain point where I can say, okay, now I can get my 1 point and I can get my center and I can calm down. But until that happens, they get to that point, there's nothing I can do about it. And I will self-harm and I'll smack my head and stuff because I just go, this is everything is just, it's like being, electroshocked or something. It's just all circuits are overwhelmed. But when someone's having a meltdown, probably the best thing to do is just say, train.
That's my train. And the building moves.
Oh my God, yeah.
I know. I tell people all the time it moves, It's like
having a massage chair. No, when people are having a meltdown, they're overwhelmed. And the best thing to do is just let them sort of ride it out until you get to the point and say, what can I do to help you? What can I do to help the situation?
Because what we try to do as parents and friends and stuff is tell them what to do. And and we don't know because you're
not a therapist.
So do you think that with autism that you completely read the world in a different way? And so you got these neuronormal people and then you've got people on the spectrum and you're completely in different worlds and you perceive this world differently than we do. And I always think what if you're right? Because you're
we are right.
You know what I mean? Because
you're the ones that are.
But don't you think people on the spectrum? I mean, this is a total generalization, but you don't take a lot of shit.
No.
And black and white. I mean, there's gray. You understand gray, but it's like make a decision, and you don't.
It's oddly enough, it's that like people with ADD. My brother has ADD. Has zero ability to make really sound judgments about people or situations. And I discovered I wasn't very good at that either. So my best safeguard against it was to just be as cynical as possible, because I may be wrong, but I'm going to err on the side of maybe this person is not genuine until they can know better. And so as a result, you don't put up with a lot of BS because a lot of it is just, I'm not sure if this is BS or if this is real. So just to be on the safe side, I'm going to assume that this is BS. And so a lot of times, people with autism maybe just be very impatient and completely tactless. Not
you.
Never.
She is the most tactful person ever. That's what I do like about you. It's like we were trying to do this a month ago, and that's why Elisa's here. Is because she doesn't have didn't want to put Google. You have to have Google. Can I tell you this?
Oh, sure. Go ahead.
Okay, so you have to be able to put Google Chrome on your computer to do this. And so we're having this conversation through email, and I said you need to put this on. She goes, I don't want that on there. And I go, well, I have to. Go ahead.
It's too much trouble. I could do it, but then it would cause a great deal. And like I said, there's too much frustration to a point in your life. You go, yeah, this isn't worth the trouble. I can't do this.
So then I went back and said, okay, so what if you came into my office? And she says, yes, I'm going to get both my shots. So I'll be vaccinated. I'll come into your office. So we worked out a way. So we came up with a way to do this, but it has to work for you. And that's, I think, something that I appreciate. And it's also very frustrating sometimes with people on the spectrum, having someone I know nearby in relationships, because it's a true negotiation, which is not a bad thing, right?
Yeah. Well, you have to negotiate. I think most relationships are negotiable anyways.
Right.
But with people with autism, they're a higher maintenance, shall we say, because you have to take more things into consideration. And we live in a world that seems to be that favors convenience over other things. And I think that sometimes relates to people as well.
Oh, you taught a class at LCC?
I had a class. Yes, I taught a class at LCC downtown, and it was a class. Hi, hey, Mary. Hi, Mary. Good to see you again.
She loved your class.
Yeah, it was. I was a little surprised that these are people who had adult children. They still have a proper nomenclature for that, but they had kids like in their 20s, and they still didn't know a lot of stuff about this. And I'm like, you don't know about this? I mean, I'm thinking, I was teaching like autism 101. I'm thinking this is something every parent should know. I'm like, okay, maybe there isn't as much information out there as it. I went to a lecture, several people talking about people with autism getting into the workforce and stuff, when you get transitioning, as they say, into adulthood and everything. And this woman during the Q&A stood up and she said, well, I'd like to know what kind of services are there for adults with autism. And we said, there aren't any.
Right.
And she looked devastated. And I'm like, there just isn't. You're up to the 18, sure, we'll help you with school, we'll get you tutor, whatever. You're 18, magically you're an adult, you're assumed you know how to figure this out, you're on your own. Just like every other person. When you turn 18, it's assumed you're an adult, you'll figure it out. And I've talked to people in their 20s and 30s who knowledge about doing something simple as, cooking or dealing with their laundry or sexual relationships. And I just go, I'm just horrified. You don't always know. And being an adult with autism means you're, as a parent or, tutor or something, you have to realize this person's still going to need more help. They're not automatically an adult. They're not mature automatically by that number. They're going to need more help. And you're going to have to do it because there's very few resources out there. More and more there are now, but by and large, there are not a lot of resources out there to help with adults with autism.
So are you lonely?
Pardon?
Are you lonely?
Yeah, there's a lot of loneliness because you can't make it either difficulty or for whatever reason don't have a lot of social connections. I find I'll be very lonely and I try to call people I know and I can't get hold of anybody. And I just go, well, I guess I'm just going to have to do something to distract me from being lonely. So it's that loneliness. It's not just a condition of autism, but it's, let's say, more acutely aware. You're more acutely aware of it as being autistic, of loneliness.
I love this. I'm so proud of you. My anxiety will not let me go. Love ever. In my day, they didn't check for autism.
No, they didn't. And I think it's not because of negligence. I think it's just because of just plain ignorance.
Don't you think?
Even today, people are saying they were misdiagnosed.
And I hope that you take this in the wrong way, or the right way. But if you don't, I know you'll tell me, which I really appreciate about you. But don't you think that when I was in school and you were in school as kids,
Yeah.
the people on the spectrum were the ones that people thought were weird.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so they looked at them instead of going, they're unique and interesting. I mean, I can look back at the people that people teased, and they were, now I look back and I go, oh my gosh, I bet they were on the spectrum.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. There's a really good book, if anyone wants to know about this. It's one of the first books I read. There are actually two books I highly recommend. One is Look Me in the Eye by John Elder Robinson.
I read that.
And his parents, both his parents were nuts. But he was always being dragged off to counselor or something. And counselor, John prefers to play by himself. John is, lonely, blah, 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 doesn't, want to interact with other people. He said, yes, I did. I just didn't know how to do it.
Right.
So they see that and they make, like the doctor who said, well, she can't be autistic. She knows how to make eye contact.
Because everybody's different. Don't you think that and you learn different coping skills. You know what I mean?
Oh, sure. The coping skills is, the big rule book we carry around to say, how do we deal with situation A and situation
Well, I think somebody could look at you too, because I've never seen a lot of the people that I know with on the spectrum cry.
Yeah.
And you do.
Oh, yeah.
And
no,
so
they
that's
probably do. They just probably don't do it in front of others.
I know somebody who had it, and I remember they said to somebody, well, what you do is if people make fun of you for crying, you just stop crying. And that person that I know has never cried since then, publicly.
This is something that is a really bad habit, and I do the same thing. If someone says to me, I'm going to be there at 3 o'clock. 3 o'clock comes by. I expect them to be there. And they're not. And then I'm like, what's going on? I have to learn to say, well, you have to give people at least 15 minutes leeway because they're not punctual like you. If I say I'm going to be there at 5:15, I will be there exactly on the dot. If someone said, when I was very young, I had my father's second wife said, once you make up your mind, you can't change it. I didn't learn that you could change your mind until I was in my 40s and I went to therapy. I said, you're allowed to change your mind? She goes, yeah. And I'm like, Really? Yeah. Well, I was told you make a choice, that's it. Oh, no, you're allowed to change your mind. Really? It never occurred to me. You're not allowed to cry. Okay? I'm not allowed to cry. That's why they stopped crying. It's like this kind of automatic thing. So, well, that must be true because someone said this, so that must be it. That's the rule.
So that people on the spectrum almost take the rules extra seriously.
People can be literal to the nth degree, literal.
Because then you did it right. And I had a friend that used to be, well, you said you were going to do this, so why didn't you do that? And you go, well, things change. No, they can't change because you said you were going to do this. And it's like, well, no, but see, things happen. Well, no, you can't do that.
Yeah.
And that's the frustrating part. But you know what? What I appreciated about that too is it's true. It is honest in a way. Not that you can't change your mind, but that you said you were going to do this. Why didn't you do it?
Yeah, and I don't know about other people. The problem I have is people make promises, and then I go, well, there's a 50-50 chance they're going to keep that promise. Because I know that people are very fond of making promises, but then they don't keep them. Everybody knows, Lisa, if she says, I promise I'll do that, you can bet on it. In Vegas, you could take odds and you'll win that bet. But I won't promise something unless I know I can keep it.
So is the hard part because you are so literal that when the real world, and I don't mean it that way in a negative way, but when normal people, they don't keep promises.
Yeah, and there's a different sort of thing. It may be a nuance there that people say something, but you as a neurotypical go, well, they're just saying that to be nice or whatever. But someone who's autistic may take it literally.
Which don't you think that's kind of refreshing? And people should, I mean, if everybody had to, if you could call people on it, see, and you can't, because you can get away with stuff like that. But if you could turn and go, hey, you promised you were going to do this and you didn't do it.
No, there's a reason why I don't do that.
Well, no, you lose
but there are a lot of, again, if I know the person, I know you enough that I can call you and you go, yeah, okay, I'm cool with that. But a lot of times I don't, because I go, I may lose this person's friendship. I can't be that blunt, or that, I have to be cautious about when am I able to be honest with people or not, because that some people take it wrong and I go, I said something wrong, and I just never hear from them again. And I go, I don't know what I did.
That's got to be the hardest part.
Oh, and again, it's the hand grenade. You never know. It's going to blow up. But if you know someone well enough, they'll know, well, and your son is on the spectrum, I believe. So you know this. You kind of, right. You're around that. You go, okay, there's something there. I'm telling a friend of mine who's also autistic, I said, frankly, I actually don't like hanging out with people autistic.
Because they irritate you too?
No, it's because you have to figure out their thing.
Oh.
It takes more trouble. Typical, I kind of, they're more or less cast.
Easy.
Yeah, you're easy to kind of, and they're kind of like this,
You're all flakes,
yeah. But with autistic people, you have to kind of go, okay, are they sensitive about this thing, or does this thing bother them? Do they get sarcasm? Do they understand metaphors? Are they going to understand when I say this, I mean that? It's interesting. I was at the Kind Tree Camp several years ago, and it was amazing walking around and people, talking to themselves or doing whatever, and nobody cared. And I thought, this is a new experience. And every single person at the end of camp, they asked them, what did you like most about camp? And they said, I liked that I could be myself and nobody judged me. This is every single camp that I went to. The biggest single thing people said was, I'm glad to be here because nobody judged me. Because we know we're being judged all the time. And that's something you have to deal with.
All the time.
All the time. Now, imagine how, you didn't used to do the news, right? You sit there, hey, I'm Rick Dancer, here's the news, blah, blah, blah. And you know that people are going to make criticism about something. You call and say, hey, I didn't like that story. Hey, I just read the news. I don't make this stuff.
Right.
I just read it. Don't blame the messenger.
Right.
But when you're standing there and you're talking on the TV and you're looking at the camera and you're reading the, teleprompter, whatever, in the back of your mind, you go, people are going to be judging what we're saying.
The difference is I'm choosing to put myself in that place.
Yeah.
You're not.
Not necessarily, yeah. And you know that, and with you know that comes with the territory.
Right.
But when I walk into a situation, I'm not thinking, well, every single person, I know that I'm going to be judged, but I don't know how, it's difficult to figure out how that judgment's going to go down.
But, and
plus, it comes with the territory.
Right. But you're not judged by the same standard as other people. So you're already walking in on the different spectrum.
Yeah.
And so you are trying to move up, but it's much easier that you're probably going to get put down.
And it's like, I've been contemplating for a long time writing a memoir, and I was going to call it Passing for Normal, because that's what it's really is, trying to pass for normal.
So what would the world be like if you could just be Elisa?
It would be like I was at Kind Tree Camp. It would be like that, and then no one would care. And they could deal with it. We can have a conversation with somebody, and they abruptly leave, and we walk away and do other stuff, and nobody's bothered by it. No one goes, well, that was kind of abrupt. Or whatever kind of behavior is going on, and everybody's cool about it.
Wow.
I can't even begin to imagine what that world like. I have a very rich interior life. And in my interior life as a writer and just with my imagination, I have lots of friends. I get along well with people. I'm very successful, and I get along really well with people. And so I said, and that's better than real life. Real life is not as much fun.
So
and that's why I think a lot of autistic people say they're off in their own world. You go, they're somewhere where they know they're not having to deal with all this. They're someplace that's safe, where they know that they're accepted and nobody gives a rat's patootie, and they can just be whoever they are, and everybody's cool with that. Whereas you have to go to school, you have to deal with kids who may bully you because you look different or you act strange, and the adults aren't much help. And then when you get in, when you get into the adult world, then you have to deal with the adult stuff and the adulting, and you don't necessarily know how to do that, and you screw up friendships or that job interview, and you don't know why. Boy, that's not a lot of fun. Yeah, sign me up for that.
So what's the hope?
Of what?
For you and others and parents out here who have children or people who are watching who are on the spectrum.
Well, it is possible to be successful. As I said, I was listening to an interview with a guy on NPR. The guy he graduated from Oxford. I'm like, really? Lucky I made it through 2 years of LCC. Come on, Some people are really good at academics.
Yeah, but you may not be good at academics. I don't know, but you are smart.
Well, yeah, but try to tell people that when I give the job interviews I've been to the last 30 years.
Right.
Tell that the people who misunderstood, well, why did she say? No, it's just the way Lisa is. That's, it's sometimes it's easy, and I don't mean this in a pejorative way. Sometimes it's easy to say to someone, well, we get it, you're smart. You go, tell them that.
Right. When smart is packaged in a different package.
Yeah. And like I said, there are people autistic, and they'll excel at college, they'll excel at academics or whatever it is, they'll do great, but they'll still have they'll still want to flap their hands or rock back and forth or do something that you think, do that. They can't help it. That's the way they are. The people who can be, of course, there are people who I think I would classify as just plain stupid who graduated from college with degrees. And you just go, these people couldn't manage their own personal finances or, manage a trip to the bathroom, but they managed to go to college. So that's not necessarily a mark of intelligence. It just says, they can handle academics.
Yeah, they pass that. What do you have to say to the ones who have never been diagnosed? Yeah, Tracy, don't you? She says, smart and so articulate, love her honesty. That's what I love about this woman, is because do you see why she's on here? It's because you put it in perspective, where I think the first time I heard you, it was like I felt like you, almost like, Elisa, you took me into a world that I kind of knew existed, but I didn't know it was like that. And I never feel sorry for you. And I don't feel sorry for people on the autism spectrum, because I don't think we should feel sorry for people. I think we should be kind and be more accepting of people. But newsflash, no neuronormal is in any better mental health state than anybody on the spectrum. And I would think that some in the spectrum probably have some of us beat anyway.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And I think it's all like that. If you took the world and go, I have a friend, Amelia Abel, and she experiences Down syndrome. And I always say to Amelia, I said, you can do anything I can do. It just takes you longer to learn how to do it.
Yeah.
And she goes, yeah. So if you're patient, and she makes me slow down.
Yeah.
Like when we have a conversation, it's not because she's slow, it's because I'm too fast.
Yeah.
So I slow down, and when I leave a meeting with her, I'm like, oh. I feel so good.
Yeah.
It's like being a little puppy, and she's managing me. She sits here and she'll have her arm on me, like patting me when I'm getting upset, like, because I think she's so wonderful. Yeah, yeah, she's my spiritual guru.
Breathe, yeah.
You know, embrace her
I'm getting
world.
back to the question about what I have to say to people who haven't been diagnosed. I don't know, get diagnosed. I don't know what to say about that. That's a
Is that
curious
important?
question. What do you say to the people who haven't been diagnosed? Have you looked into this?
Does it help to
I
know?
knew somebody. In fact, I know her. I've known her for years and years and years. And I always thought she was, she's a little eccentric and whatever. And, she's very talkative, and she was obsessive about her son's health, because that was a big issue with her, and blah, blah, blah. And then we didn't see each other for a couple of years. And then she lived with me for a couple of months after I got my diagnosis. She lived with me a couple of months. She was between, living here and Washington. And within weeks, I realized, my God, this woman is autistic. There's no doubt about it. She had 2 children who are autistic. I'm going, have you ever been tested for autism? And she goes, well, I've already been diagnosed with OCD and
Yep.
borderline personality. And I went, that's like going to a doctor and they say, well, you have a upper respiratory infection and a cough. Instead of saying, yeah, that's the symptoms of a cold. Yes, those are symptomatic of people who are autistic. And then she got really quiet, and I went, okay, she can deal with it. She's going to decide whether she wants to pursue that or not. It's not a death sentence, whatever. But I said, okay, I told her, I gave her my opinion with it. She can deal with it if she wants. And I think that's the appropriate thing to do. But again, it's important to point out to the person, your fly is open,
Right. So Tori wants to know, do you believe an official diagnosis is necessary?
If you want to get on disability, yeah. That's what I ended up having to do. Get on disability
Because you couldn't get a job.
Nobody's gonna, and at this point, who's gonna hire a 6-year-old woman with autism? Right. But if you
you're
have,
not that hot in the job
oh,
market.
come on, I'm smarter than most people in this room. I'm sorry, does that sound tactless? Well, it's true. You get out of here. You're an idiot. If you have supportive family, if you know how to do a job, if you can navigate the world well enough, you don't necessarily need that diagnosis.
And it really depends on where you are on the spectrum. Don't
It
you
depends
think?
on where you are. It depends,
My
some
wife
people-
thinks I'm on. My wife goes. I'm sure you're on the spectrum. And but people would go, no, because Rick has eye contact. But you know what I learned? Because I've learned this about myself. I don't look people in the eye. I watch your mouth.
Yeah.
I trick people. I learned that early on, if you had good eye contact, people would understand. So I look at people's mouths, and I could tell anybody what their mouth looks like. But when the mask came out,
Yeah.
I don't recognize people that I know. And I'm looking going, I told my wife, I said, oh my God, I am like, it's like somebody
Sorry, who
took
are you
something
again?
away. So it's really frustrating. So, I think it depends on where you are on that whole spectrum. But I think, there's a lot of
But
people-
also the trick is a lot of autistic people learn to make eye contact, even if it's minimal. But it doesn't mean it's pleasant. As if every time you
Right.
did it, like someone hit you in the back of the head, and you go. But you have to do it because it's required in order to pass as normal.
And so but you don't care if you're normal anymore.
I don't care.
It's overrated, don't you think? Eye contact is overrated. I do the same, Rick. Yeah, I think we all learn tricks. And I'm not belittling autism. I'm saying, oh yeah, Rick Dancer. No, I'm just saying. My wife says sometimes you are so literal about certain things, and so it helps me because I can kind of back off and look at things differently. But I don't see the world like you do, so that's not where I'm. You know what I mean? Where it's like I don't have trouble functioning in that, knowing the difference. But I do say things. I'm saying, my wife will just go, "You shouldn't say that." Right. That probably didn't really go over that well. And I'm going, I notice it when I write a comment sometimes on Facebook. I'll go back and go, maybe I should probably delete that. Okay, more questions. I work with the most wonderful, amazing folks who have autism. I have learned so much. I think, honestly, the people on the spectrum are the teachers. It's almost like God's way of going, this is what you were supposed to be like. And you guys.
Okay, you think the
screwed it
normal
up.
people is easy? Okay. I'm going to give this group of people just to see how much you can actually handle this.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. And see, this is this is truth. Yes. So true. I absolutely love the book name. Please write it. Oh,
Okay. The
You
other book
should.
I would highly recommend is a book called Neurotribes by Steve Silberman.
okay. But Tori, just so you know, and I think you know this, but I want to reiterate it. She wants you to write your book.
Oh yeah, okay, sure. It's on my list.
And Lisa she can write. I mean, she's good. She's writing. Yeah, she's putting it on her list now. It has to get done right.
Well, this is the thing I've been.
Look at my list all over my office.
Seriously,
and then I scratch one and I make another one.
This is a huge subject with me, because I don't want to bore everybody with my long story. But long story short, I wanted to be a writer for the last 45 years, but I mostly fiction. Well, fiction is next to impossible to get published anywhere. So I said, okay, well, I'll try nonfiction. Oh, well, even then you have to self-publish. And that costs a lot of money, which I don't have. And I went, okay, I'm done. I'm not meant to be a writer. It's just not happening. So I've pretty much given up on writing, because I go, I write stuff and it goes in a drawer.
Why don't you just write it?
Okay.
But you know what, Elisa, why don't you write it like part fantasy, where it's real, but then how you go into your fantasy world and who those friends are. I would love to read, like, here's your day here normally, and then how you escape into that place, and here's these people. It's a completely different world.
Actually, I did write a short story, and I'm trying to write the sequel. I wrote a short story, and I posted some of it on my blog site, but it's called Shop Talk. And then, for years, when I didn't want to deal with this world, I said, well, people said, what do you do? And I said, I work as a interior designer for spaceships in a spaceship and maintenance repair shop. And they go, really? No, that's what I do. So I wrote a story about that, about working on this spaceship shop.
See, I think there's a whole audience of people out here that would read that. I really do. And I think you should not.
Well, like I said, they can if you go to my blog site, then make a request. And if I get enough people, I'll.
What is your blog site?
Oh God, it's called AMC.
AMC.
Stubborn Turtle. Blogspot.
Stubborn two B's.
Stubborn Turtle. Do I have my card? Wait a minute. Do I have one of my cards here?
We're gonna get this.
Hang on.
Dan Conley says, "I can't make eye contact. It makes me feel uncomfortable." Are you, Dan? Do you consider yourself on the spectrum? AMC.
Some people just aren't worth looking in the eye. Let's be honest.
TUR.
Do I really want to look this person in? I was going to say something weird. No, do I really want to look this person in the face? No, don't. Don't apologize. Say I have better things to do with my time than look at your ugly face.
Okay.
I'm sorry. I was momentarily distracted. What? I'm sorry. What were you saying?
Yeah. No. Oh, I'm sorry. See, this is what I would do. No, I'm sorry. I'm autistic. I do that all the time. Yeah. Sorry, I'm autistic. Just blame. I pull the cancer card on people. Yeah. No, I had cancer. That's why.
Okay. Milk that as much as you can.
Yeah. You should do a GoFundMe for your writing. You would get a ton of sponsors, but GoFundMe takes too much money.
Yeah. Again, it's like. Here's the other thing. A lot of great ideas. I know how the business of writing a book. You write a book proposal and you do this and you do that. I know how to do all that stuff. You go, I don't have the energy to do that. I can't do that. It's like, I know how to play chess. I don't play chess. I play chess lousy, but I know how the game is played.
Marissa loves you.
You're welcome.
I love you. Haha. Haha. Yes. Sometimes you don't know what they're ha-haing, and if you don't know, I don't know either. But I pretend, because it's like the conversation goes on. I'm trying to get the courage up to get diagnosed. Is it worth the diagnosis for myself?
Don't worth the courage. I went to, unfortunately, he's now retired, but I happened to go to someone who was semi-retired at the time, and I went to see him, and I said during the first session, I said, I think I may have autism. I may have Asperger's. He goes, oh yeah, you have Asperger's. I mean, it was like immediately noticed it. I said, why don't all these other people I went through with life, how come they didn't notice it or say anything? Oh, I'm sorry. We don't want to embarrass them because their fly is open.
Yeah.
Get the diagnosis. If it bothers you, get the diagnosis. And it's not that hard. It's not a matter of courage. Do you want to know? If you want to know, then do it. If you don't want to know, then okay, busy yourself with anxiety.
Right, because I think there's two kinds of people out there. There's people that would just live their life on, and people that know. I like knowing what's going on with me so that I can.
Well, like with your diagnosis, when they can be, I'm afraid to know it's cancer. Would you be afraid that the doctor says, Rick, do you want me to tell you or not?
Right.
Exactly.
Right.
And some people go, I don't want to know. And I just go, you don't want to know what's going on? No, that's a bad call. People have a right to know what's going on.
Dan, what kind of cancer do you have, if you don't mind me asking? Oh, I didn't know that. Bummer. See, this is a problem. It's
this big toe. It would get like this big. It would get the size of a melon, and it would make this weird squishing noise when he walked. It was horrible. And the doctor said, ooh, that's got to go.
Yeah. Well, actually, it was my prostate, so that would be a really weird. on my toe.
Oh, TMI.
Colon. Oh, Dan, I'm sorry. So I hope you're doing okay with that.
He looks okay.
Well,
He's
no,
really
he's talking.
skinny.
Dan
He
has
does exercise. He bicycles everywhere. It's disgusting.
Dan has colon cancer.
Oh, well, that sucks.
Yeah, that's and I'm sorry. That is just But are you going to be okay? Which I guess
You'll lose. You'll get to lose all that weight you've been trying to lose. That for sure.
That is a typical
Horrible thing.
spectrum.
Well,
response.
here's the good news and the bad news. The bad news, you have cancer. The good news is, you know that extra 40 pounds you've been trying to lose?
Yeah. When you have cancer, and I don't know if Dan felt it, you look for anything to make it, okay, what's the bright side? I got to find one.
I can milk this for years at
Yeah.
parties.
Well,
Check.
when somebody is standing, I remember where I used it. I went to Austin Stadium, and when you're a man, you stand at these troughs and you pee.
Mhm.
Well, it takes me a while now because they messed around with all that stuff
Yeah.
down there. So I'm standing there, and this guy comes up behind me, and he's drunk, and he goes, "What the hell's taking you so long?" And I turn around, I says, "Oh, I'm sorry, I had prostate cancer, and they blasted the hell out of my prostate with radiation, so it takes me a while longer." And everybody goes, "Oh." And the man goes, "Sorry." And I said, "That's called playing the cancer card."
Yeah, then you betcha.
I'm sorry.
I told
Dan.
a friend of mine when she had cancer, I said, "Oh no, you got to milk this for as much as you can."
Oh, you go in every 6 months for a checkup. Everything has been great for the last 4 years. Good. Okay, good. All right, Dan, that's what we want to hear. God bless you, Dan. We'll pray for you. Now, Dan, I'll tell you what, I have the best people on my page ever, and these people will all pray for you. They're all the kindest people ever. Elisa, that was so fun. Did you have fun?
Yeah, it was fun.
And did you guys like that? This is what we need to be doing more on social media, is talking about stuff like this and not being ashamed of who we are or how people, and not worried about how people perceive us, because people are going to perceive us the way they want to. But I think it's also a great example, listening to Elisa talk, is that it's a great chance to get involved with people's lives. And if they are suffering with depression, to don't just, we'll just let them be. They don't need to be let be.
That's ignoring somebody when they're depressed is the worst thing you can do. Wow, look at the time, gotta go. Sorry about that. Instead, if someone says to you, "I'm really depressed," they're serious, because that's the sort of thing they know really turns people off. It's a real conversation downer. I don't want to bother people with my depression. I don't want to, if they say, "I'm really depressed," they're saying, "Help me."
Right.
And the best thing you can do is say, "Let's go get some ice cream. Let's talk about whatever."
Yeah, you don't have to have an in-depth conversation about why they're
No, in
depressed.
fact,
Just
don't. No.
Get their
In fact,
mind somewhere
exactly the
else.
opposite. Don't talk about the depression. Don't try to be a therapist or an analyst. You'll get it wrong. You're not a therapist. You're a friend. They're reaching out because they say, "Please get me out of this hole. Let's talk about something other than this thing that's dragging me down."
But they're not going to ask you to get them out of the hole.
No, if they say, "I'm
You-
really depressed," or they act really depressed, say, "Wow, it's really bummed." "Yeah, I'm really bummed." "Okay, hey, let's go for ice cream," or "Hey, let's go for a walk," or "Hey, did you watch the game last night? What did you think of that?" Blah blah blah. Get them out of that hole. Get them to talk about something that they enjoy. That's something that's pleasant.
So you guys, do me a favor. If you would share this on your page so that other people can see this. And you never know. And one of the sad things about the spectrum is I think a lot of people hide people who are on it. They don't want to admit that that's it. When it's, why not admit this is who people are, and enjoy them for what they are and who they are, and look at it as an adventure. And we tend to shy away from that. But if you put it on your page, somebody might come on your page and go, "Oh my God," and they see that and realize that there is hope and
Yeah.
that there is life
Yeah.
after a spectrum diagnosis. In fact, I think it can be really good, but it's up to all of us to do that.
And the other thing is, people think that a diagnosis of autism is a death sentence. Or I remember the story that when Ricky Martin, he finally sent out this email and said, "I'm gay," and he sat down and said it, and he broke down crying. He was just overcome, and people found out he was gay. I went, "Really? Wow, what a non-shocker that is! Really? Who cares?" I was more astounded that he decided that we had twin boys, that he was going to raise them the first couple months. He was going to do all that himself. No nannies, not helping. He was going to do it himself. I'm like, okay, that's insane. You're going to take care of two infant children for the first 6 months of their life? Okay. You're being gay is like way down the list of craziness there.
I'm not impressed with your homosexuality, but the fact that you're going to take care of those two kids together, that's impressive.
It's true. And everybody kind of, you said I'm gay, and everybody went,
Yeah.
wasn't the end of the world. So what?
No, it didn't kill you.
Yeah.
And autism won't either.
No.
All right.
And like you said, like the cancer thing, I think you just play that card in many times as you can.
Yeah.
Play it for all it's
Elisa
worth.
just go around and say, I'm sorry. I just called you a bitch. But you know what? Facebook will probably take that one. They'll probably take the whole thing out one time now. Oh, I didn't say that, Facebook. I'm so sorry. I used the B word, please. You can say fuck, but you can't say bitch.
Really?
It is the weirdest thing on here. Yeah, no. And sometimes it's okay. And sometimes it's not.
Can you call somebody an asshole?
Did you just call me an asshole?
No, I didn't say
you can.
you.
You can. Yeah.
Okay.
There, now we have tainted the end of the show. But see, this way, people have to watch the whole show to find this out. Now, really quick, you guys, I want to show you something we're doing tomorrow. So we're going to release a video with the timber industry. Everybody has their opinion about what's going on with the timber industry and all the log trucks and all this kind of stuff. We're going to do a special report tomorrow. This is just a teaser.
The amount of carbon that keeps getting released because we don't do fuels mitigation. We don't allow for some of those fuel treatments to happen in forests. We don't allow thinning to happen.
If you try and let nature take over, we've seen some examples of that, and it just doesn't happen very quickly.
We're going to be able to utilize Oregon logs for Oregon homes and create jobs all the way through the pipeline.
We're really looking out for the forest for future generations. So at least my kids, I feel like I'm kind of providing something for my kids going forward into the future.
So that airs tomorrow. I'll be placing it on here. And then tomorrow night, we're going to be talking to John Kilcullen. That's Officer Chris Kilcullen's father. And Chris Kilcullen was killed, actually shot to death when he pulled someone over 10 years ago it was 10 years ago on Thursday out on Highway 105 and 52nd Street. And so we're going to be talking to John, his dad, tomorrow about everything. Current riot things, how police are treated, his son. And then on Thursday at 1:00, they're having a live ceremony out there at the site. And there's a couple of surprises with that as well. And we'll be there live for that too. So lots of good content this week. Share this on your page. Have a great evening and good night. Thanks, Elisa.